All right, members, let's resume our meeting. Please be seated. Ms. Claudia Mo, 4 minutes, please. Ms. Claudia Mo. Ms. Claudia Mo, 4 minutes, please. Sorry, I didn't realize you're back. How time flies. Earlier, the deputy chair there are 4 parts to the paper, and the deputy chair asked us not to focus our attention on the Q mask alone. But these 4 R&D centers are interlinked. The official said that the policy should be viewed as a whole. I still would like to vote on them separately. The Q mask that was launched with so much fanfare, it was said it's washable, it is antibacterial. Dr. Pierre Chen asked you whether this can be COVID resistant. You said yes. Sorry, I forgot my mask. Antibacterial, you talked about bacteria. We're talking about coronavirus. It is a virus. So the doctor said that there is the distinction between virus and bacteria. And I think he is really teasing you, and you didn't answer him. We asked you last week, you said that each of the masks cost you $40. And this is taxpayers' money. This is out of the public coffers. The Carrie Lam administration said that this is distributed for free, and this is antibacterial. There are some hospitals that put up a sign to say that if you come in with the Q mask on, you're not allowed in because that doesn't offer you any protection. COVID resistant. I am 30 feet away from you. Whatever you wear, even if you put up a piece of paper in front of you, it would be good enough. So there is very much a consensus how many people are wearing these Q masks on the street. I think you are all of them putting them on for show. You asked the chairman to let you have more time to do the explanation. I'm giving up because you're repeating yourself. For these 4 R&D centers, they are doing the R&D for the sake of R&D. It is so unwieldy. They are doing this for the sake of doing it. It seems as if there are so many things that are happening at the same time. You said at one point that the industry seeks the R&D initiatives, and then you said that you need to do the R&D, you need the support of the industry. I don't know what you're driving at. If I may put a question here regarding the automobile parts and the components, the APIS.
$80 million, 80.5 or 85 million budget. I forgot to ask you this question last time. To me, it's like it's getting a lot of money. And you said that you want the money for the research in electric vehicles and fast charging methods and recycling, battery, energy storing, battery, and to research on artificial intelligence and so forth, or big data and so forth. But big data is something that has been researched on by the Innovation Technology Bureau. So how would the center play any role in it? And autonomous driving and so forth. Well, sorry, please press the button again. Fernando John, you ready? 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Your time's up. Your time's up. You're not new here. Well, I need to stop you when time's up. Fernando John, 4 minutes. Chairman, just then, whether it's the CEO or the commissioner, they've mentioned some figures, staggering figures to me. I don't know whether I heard it wrong or not. Just then the commissioner said that the Q mask, the cost, including all the miscellaneous expenses, transportation and so forth, comes to $40 each. And the CEO said the manufacturing cost is less than $1. That is like $8 each as an exchange rate. So that means the production cost is $8 and the trading cost is $32. I don't know whether I got it right or not. The $800 million is reimbursable, and the commissioner said this is a environmentally friendly mask. I strongly doubt whether this is, historically speaking, the least environmental friendly mask. Look at the cost. Transaction cost is 4 times that of the manufacturing cost. So what kind of transaction are we talking about here? The middleman would not pocket all the money. I don't believe that Rita would, take any money from it. So I think you're talking about the transportation cost. Manufacturing costs $8, and then transporting it from Vietnam to here. I don't know how much carbon emission are we talking about here. And then in Hong Kong, you have to distribute them. How many staff are involved at post offices? Going to different places in Hong Kong. I think besides the word scandal, I will also describe it as a silly and an unenvironmentally friendly exercise. We need to stop that. We also heard from the Public Doctor Association, which expressed the words that if you keep distributing the masks to the elderly people's homes, and the elderly residents there go in and out of hospital, and yet this mask cannot resist bacteria or virus at hospitals. So the elderly people may think that the masks are protective, and yet the masks put them in a dangerous situation. And some elderly people with residential care homes said they would not accept the masks, and you still keep distributing them to the homes. And so all the masks are there. It's caused some confusion. Hospital has said that they would not let people in wearing these masks. So I'm worried that the whole thing will get worse. Can you stop distributing the masks, please? Because to elderly people, this could cause problems. And I also like to ask you, in the paper, paragraph 26, you said that there is a smart device that can stop the elderly people from getting lost, and Tonghua 11 elderly people centers are using the mask. How many elderly people residential care homes and elderly centers? Well, you started it in 2018. How many elderly people are really using it now? Who would answer? Are you referring to paragraph 26? Tonghua group of hospitals, when they are in need, they will use it. When the elderly people need the device, they will use it. Next one, please. Please press the button again. Let me say this again. Everyone is entitled to, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, in terms of time, including answering question. Next one, Andrew Wen, 4 minutes. Follow up on my previous question about the APAS. 4 minutes from me, right? Yes. Okay. In the paper, it stated that in the future, the business opportunity lies in, as mentioned, the car network platform and autonomous driving. Last time, in my question on autonomous driving, I found that they didn't really address the issue here because they mentioned the traffic cones and the related technology. My understanding is that there isn't really a new technology. I just feel that I wouldn't look down on Hong Kong's technology. Last time I said that, Chairman, you were not here last time, and I was saying that for Tesla or Puma, they are the leading manufacturers, and they have pioneering technology. But there's still room for development for us. Like 20 years ago, PolyU, the lunar exploration device, actually that they developed was adopted by NASA in the States in their exploration trip. So just tell us, what is our niche in terms of a technology? You just talk about the traffic cone technology. That's not really something new. Tesla developed it quite well in 2014. So have you actually achieved a breakthrough? And also in terms of business opportunity, well, the Internet of Cars is similar to the Internet of Things. So you're using satellite or other Internet system or what, trying to link up devices involving cars and passengers, so that in terms of collecting information or mobility, more convenience, effectiveness can be provided. But my question is, in terms of technology, right now, do you have any collaboration partners in the technology level? How advanced are we? I haven't seen any new, even the Internet of Cars is developed to some extent elsewhere already. Are we actually enjoying any niche, any advanced project that is worthy of continuous financial support by electrical? Who would answer? Mr. Dr. Zhang? Just then, the traffic cone robotic, the robots concerned, as mentioned before, actually is actually a project in which the roads department has sourced worldwide for a traffic cone robots. And they couldn't find it worldwide, therefore they turned to us to develop the design. We did make the design based on their need. We need to look at the regulations in Hong Kong on the placement of traffic cones, because you need to have a cone with light, and also we need to develop a automated system using artificial intelligence and so forth. Basically, worldwide, you may have seen various systems for traffic cones, but that will be the next step. In the future, our robots being developed, when placed on the street, can help actually do cutting grass work or others. How about the Internet of Cars? Well, as I said, the roadmap involves green transport, that is electric vehicles, charging facility, and the Internet of Cars. And for the Internet of Cars, we have just started doing the research, and we do have a coalition involving 100 members in Hong Kong. Right now, we are collecting their needs and then to decide on what sorts of development we should embark on. So we are still at a stage where we haven't come to any results or created any results yet. Elizabeth Quat next. Okay, I only got an answer after my question was asked 3 times. I want to still ask about the question on overall review of the centers. Just then, Chung Kwok Pan asked for me the timeline, and you promised just then that you will have a comprehensive review. But when would you finish the review and announce the results to electrical and the public? And also, you haven't answered me on how you're going to avoid taking business away from the private sector. Who would answer? Yeah, in my reply to Ms. Quat, I said that we will carry out a review because there's really a need to see how the various R&D centers can better play their roles. Every year, we do come back to electrical to report back to you the work of the various centers. I hope the next time when we come back to electrical on the progress of the 4 centers, we can inform you on the result of our review. And the 4 R&D centers, the chairmen are involved in R&D, and whether we're taking business away from the market. I think if we have time, I will ask our CM or the car center to explain to you, give you the details. Yes, I'll start first. We are R&D center, and we never after profits or involved in business. So all along we have not been competing with private companies, but because of the R&D work, there are commercial R&D companies in Hong Kong. There are not that many of them, and most of them are from the overseas. And right now, besides doing the R&D ourselves, we are also collaborating with 6 universities to carry out applied research with them. And we are also helping 7 startups. And just then, members said that, what about our outcome, the outcome of our research? All along, we are actually transferring our technology to other companies at a low cost. We've done quite a lot of that. The biggest problem is that since we're not a large center, so we cannot let all companies know of our work. But we try to publicize our work. So we would let companies use our technology on a trial basis, and we apply for help from the Innovation and Technology Fund. Commercial companies can also ask for support with Subhead and Accessory. For some startups there, we are helping them apply for various support so as to offer help to the sector. Okay, next one, please. Yes, in response to what Mr. Wong just said, in taking up projects, we try to avoid taking the work away from the private sector. But lately, we have been helping or working with startups or SMEs who ask us to give them help in trying to enter the car park center or market. For example, in relation to autonomous driving, we have a mini mover project. Because this is our own R&D project, we have our own IP, and some startups want to collaborate with us when they cannot find a company that can do customization for them. There could be similar project being done outside, but we can collaborate with these small companies, startups nonetheless. For some chargers for electric vehicles, I've done some research. We've done some research project there, and for companies which have created parts and which can largely reduce the size of the car chargers, so they want to collaborate with us. And we try to position ourselves in such a way that we're not competing with the market, but rather to enable SMEs, startups, to actually resolve or meet their needs. Next one, Chung Kwok Pen. Commissioner, I think you still haven't answered the question on when you're going to undertake the review. You promised to do the review, but when? Can you give us a timetable? Review on the positioning of the 4 centers. And I also asked the question earlier on, why is it that millions of masks have been distributed and yet people in Hong Kong are not wearing them? The commissioner said, well, they may be just putting them at home. Of course they would take it, and because they're free and they just leave it at home. But you wanted them to use them. So you have to find out why people are not wearing the masks. It's not like, oh, I've created the masks and distributed them and that's it. None of my business. You've distributed the masks. But in the future, if similar thing happens and you have other research outcome that can be distributed to the public, and then if you come back to LegCo for funding for that research project or outcome, then we will not give you the money because like this time, people are not using your product. Like the cash handout of $10,000, the financial secretary are encouraging people to use up the money, right? The handout. So you have to encourage people to use the mask after you've distributed it to them. So you found out why people are not using it, leaving it at home. You're saying that it is environmentally friendly. So how come people are still using the disposable masks instead? Commissioner, thank you for your question. In my answer to this part, I said that we will review the positioning of the 4 R&D centers and their work at our next meeting here in LegCo, because every year we have to report back to LegCo on the progress of the 4 centers. So next time when we come back for our report, a briefing in LegCo, we will report back to you the outcome of our review. And as for the masks, I said just then that this is a very special project at a very special time, and the R&D commercialized is a bold attempt by them to commercialize its research outcome. I've never seen the government taking such a bold move. It's just for the sake of fighting the epidemic. So it's a bold attempt. Very courageous project. So back then, well, maybe you find it this or not so satisfactory. If more time were available, we might have done a better job. Now, our work now is to, well, we managed to manufacture reusable masks that are compliant with the standard. And we've said that this is a mask to help people have protection at the community level. And how do people make use of the mask? It's their choice. They have the freedom to decide what to do with the mask. Wu Chi-wai, 3 minutes. I've looked at page 11 on your operating expenditure, and then the next page talks about expenditure for R&D. And now you're asking us for money up to 1 billion for the 4 R&D centers from the list in your paper. So you're asking us for money for the operating expenditure. Clear enough. But my question all along is that if this is for the operating expenditure, then compared to the R&D expenditure in the coming 4 years to the tune of $2.1 billion, that means for $1 for R&D, we need to pay for 30 cents for administrative costs. I don't quite get how these figures come about. Generally, we would see that the administrative expenditure in comparison with the R&D expenditure, if both grow, then the marginal growth should be much smaller because you just take the same number of people to do the vetting. The main researchers and the R&D expenditure in terms of hiring researchers would be considered part of the R&D cost. So can you explain to us in the 4-year period, in terms of the growth in the operating expenditure, if it is to be, is it that, can you be more specific? How many more people you need? Or what is the increase in manpower? And how it can facilitate the growth in your operating expenditure?
Do you have a goal or objective so that your operating expenditure could be contained or minimized at a certain level? Do you agree that the 1 to 2, this ratio, you are satisfied with it, or do you have any plans to minimize it? Chairman, regarding operating expenditure, we have in the enclosure set out the respective operating expenditure of the 4 R&D centers. There are breakdowns. As I mentioned, there will be more projects of the research centers. That's why they will require more operating expenditure. and also they would need to procure additional facilities and equipment to conduct these new projects. If time allows, I would like to ask the CEOs to elaborate on this. Well, in the past years, when we were doing the logistics supply chain, it's been more complex. It's getting more complicated when compared with 10 years ago. Well, in the past, we were doing about electronic labels. We had 3 projects each year, but now the number has increased to 25 per year. In order to support these projects, we have to invest more and more into equipment. For instance, we have AI technologies. We need to buy servers, and these are actually very expensive. We also need supporting facilities. And also to help the logistics industry, we want to make use of the robots and also automation to help them. That's why we also would need experiment venues for these technologies. For my research center, in the past we were doing purely research projects, but then now there are more collaboration with the industry. We have to help them enter the market, and also we would have to help solve the problems that the industries have met. As Mr. Tam said, we have to use X-ray to scan all the air cargoes. So these are new things, and that's why we have additional operating expenditures. All right, if you have 37A, let me remind you that you better submit it as soon as possible, before 6:45. Ms. Tanya Chen, please, 3 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. You talk about background IP just now. When I was looking at the state IP paper, it was mentioned that there are 3-layer face masks. And also, it could be rewashed multiple times. I want to know, what does it mean by background IP? From 3 layers to 6 layers, you need a background IP. I'm just asking you about the most important layer, that is the material it's from Israel, and then this can be regarded as a Hong Kong research project. Ms. Chan, please. Thank you. For the new mask, the Q mask, well, it is same as the previous one. It's multiple layered. How many layers? Sorry, 6. 6 layers. You mean the original one was or also had 6 layers? How come it wasn't written down like that on the paper? I've read it several times. 3 layers only. There are drawings here. Yes, I am also looking at the previous patent paper. Well, there are the weak magnetic layer and also layer, and also the antivirus layer, and it's also a washable mask. I know. Sorry, Ms. Chan. What I want to know is that you said the project was conducted in a very short time. How did you come into contact with the Israel company? Do you have anybody that know the people so that you can just ask them directly to and then procure the material from them? Any middleman that had helped you for this project? Let me explain. From 2017 to 2019, when we were conducting the research project, we already had contact with this company. So this was not the first time that we contacted them when we were trying to make the Q mask. We didn't do the project or the research on this material together. I think I've asked my question pretty clearly. I'm asking about the Q mask, the layer for the Q mask. Through what kind of people have you contact with to link you up with this company? What project? Research project. Which research project, Chairman? Chairman, I only have just 2 masks. One is the weak magnetic layer mask. The other one is a Q mask. For the first mask, we already had contact with that company in 2017. Well, I think the question is very clear. Which project? You better state more specifically. For the weak magnetic layer project, we already had contact with this company. We also procured the material from them. At that time, because they were able to meet our requirements and they were up to standards, and that's why we bought the material from this Israel company. We have to combine all the layers together. Okay, next, Dr. Fernando Jiang, 3 minutes. Well, Chairman, I also like to follow up on the question of operating cost and also the price. The cost is about $40 per piece, but then the production cost should be less than $8. So about $32 have gone into transportation, its administrative costs, etc. I'd like to seek clarification on whether this understanding is correct. Second, on para 26, let me repeat my question. This kind of technology is important. I noticed that in 2016, you already have some kind of satellite positioning technology. And in 2018, Donghua also mentioned that there are 11 elderly care centers trying out this kind of system. And there are also RFID technology. These technologies are, of course, very important. They could help us have early detection of whether the elderly person had lost his way. So with this kind of tracking system, we will be able to alert the staff concerned to prevent this elderly person from getting lost. So in Hong Kong, as far as you know, how many elderly people will be benefited from this technology? Well, Chairman, let me first talk about the costs. According to our present estimate, well, raw materials, production, logistics, staffing, and also packaging and delivery included, it is estimated that each of the Q masks will cost $40. But because we have not completed with the distribution yet, we do not have the final figure. I hope that we'll be able to report to members by mid-August. Just now, the CEO was talking about the production cost in the industry, and then he mentioned that it's less than $1 per piece. It's just about manufacturing costs. Well, Chairman, I'm talking about the difference between the manufacturing cost and the price. Well, of course, we have to factor into the cost of transportation and also packaging materials, admin costs, and personnel, etc. Because for distribution in Hong Kong and also storage in Hong Kong, all these will incur costs. Exactly, that's my point. This is not environmental friendly. I think it is the least environmental friendly mask in the world. Second part of the question, please. Dr. Jiang. Our center is responsible for the we are responsible for the technology, and Astri is responsible for the garment and also the clothes. And when they are going outing, we will use GPS method to track them. And also for indoor, we have already promoted this technology for quite some time. For Donghua Group, there are more than 19 centers, elderly centers, that have been using this. And for us, we have been promoting this technology to over 50 elderly homes in Hong Kong. We are very glad that this technology has already entered or included as Gerontech, and then they can use the fund to buy this technology and this product. This technology is being used by quite a number of companies. And also for outdoor, there is a company which is an NGO. They have spent a lot of money providing services to the elderly people. And that is, if they get lost outdoor, they can use GPS or Wi-Fi. That is, we can make use of the Wi-Fi and also GPS technology to inform their family members or the NGO, the elderly home, to locate where this elderly person is. Mr. Chung Kok Pan, talking about production costs, I understand that some part of the processes were conducted in Hong Kong, in the mills in Chin Wan. So that shouldn't be $1 per piece, right? It seems that how come this is not published or not mentioned? That is the production cost in Hong Kong and how much Hong Kong is involved. And also in the mills, well, it was mentioned on the press that this is actually against the law, against the buildings regulation, because the mills should not have production processes conducted in it. So this is actually against the lands regulations. How come the government has not mentioned about it? Chairman? Regarding the mills, the production process involved only sampling and also testing of the samples and also refining of the samples. This is actually an R&D output. So the center is trying to see how this could be manufactured, how it could be refined and improved upon, etc. So only these processes were conducted in the mills. The Lands Department have also conducted inspection, and then it was found that no contravention of the regulations had occurred. Well, Chairman, yes, for production, we have made use of one of the factories to conduct the manufacturing. Can you mention which factory was that? In To Kwa Wan, a factory in To Kwa Wan. About 450,000 pieces were produced there. How many workers were involved in that factory? We pay them by the hour. So altogether, there are about 200 workers that have been involved in this project, manufacturing of the mask. Dr. Elizabeth Kwok. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to follow up on whether the centers are actually getting businesses from the private sector. If, as what the two CEOs have said are right, that means they are not trying to get business from the private sector. However, what I've heard from outside is just on the contrary. You mentioned making use of new technologies, and you said that there are already some companies that are already making use of these technologies to produce products. And you mentioned that your R&D fund is mainly from the government, and your collaborators will also put in part of the cost, but then you will let them use the technology. If those companies, their core business is making this kind of business, they would feel very unfair because they have to put in their own money to do research. But then if a company collaborates with you, they will be able to enjoy your research funding from government because most of your funding are from government. So the private sector would feel very unfair. This is one of the complaints that I've often heard. And then second, you would sometimes partner with some companies to apply for ITF, the INT funding, and also or maybe other government funding. But then for the private sector, they would feel that they do not have people, dedicated people for writing of the application forms or project of applications or proposals. And of course, you will have an edge over the private sector because you have more people, more manpower, you have dedicated people and experienced people writing the application or the project proposals. And that's why they are saying that you are getting or taking away businesses from them. And they feel they are unfairly treated. Okay, I think time's up. Could you be brief? The CEO, please. Thank you for your view. As a research center, we have been trying hard to collaborate with the industry. We sincerely hope that all the companies or the industries will be in contact with us. We hope to be able to collaborate with them. Well, now we have been collaborating with quite a number of chambers and also logistics companies. There are over 62 chambers and then about 300 SMEs. And each and every one of them, we told them that we were willing to collaborate with them. Of course, there are a lot of companies like this in Hong Kong. What we can do is just to try our best to get into contact with them and try to collaborate or ask for collaboration with them. If the SME companies need this kind of technology, we will try our best to help them out. For the government's ITF, it is very open. Even for private companies, they could apply for the fund, and we could also apply for the fund. We could also join hands with them to apply for the fund together. We will continue to try our best to assist the industry, and we will also try to avoid giving people the impression that we are fetching businesses from the private sector. Mr. Chen, Pierre Chen, please. I'd like to ask a question about the HEPA filter. You just mentioned that the face mask can filter out COVID-19 virus. I was quite impressed by your so-called achievement. It seems that it's even better than N95 and also P100. I am really very interested about how your mask is able to do that. Can you provide me with the relevant information or kind of evidence to prove that your mask is able to do that? Well, I can remind you that even N95 or P100 face mask cannot do that. For HEPA, as I told you just now, our hospitals, the public hospitals, have been using a HEPA filter for more than a decade. And there are also private sectors, air refreshers. They also use a HEPA filter. It costs only $240 for the filter. But I'd like to know why the multi-HEPA filter that you have come up with, why is it that we have to give you money to do this project? And where is the value addedness? Because in the market there are also this kind of filter, and people are able to buy it in the market, and it costs only about $240.
And point number 5, the nano bubble technology. I find this really astounding myself. Why I bring this up is because previously I tried to assuage the concerns of the public. The aerosol, people don't have to be worried about hot pot meals because there will not be such tiny particles that will transmit COVID-19. It would be in the medical procedures that such tiny fine particles will be produced, like intubation. We need to have the PPE protection. We try to pacify the members of the public, but it seems that reading the answer, I'm beginning to be worried because we have to tell people that they have to be concerned about the high-grade medical equipment in order to guard against the COVID. Right, do you have time? Or in writing? Yes, I can take the question very quickly. About HEPA, there are many standards for HEPA. Ours is E13 class. Basically, the airborne particulates, we can filter 99.5%. H1N1, the size is smaller than 100 nanometers. COVID-19 is about 100 nanometers. Our filter can filter out antiparticles less than 70 nanometers. We have conducted tests for H1N1. We should be able to filter them out. And if we can pass the E13 HEPA standard, we should be able to filter out COVID-19. And we will try to get the testing certification. Our HEPA filter is different from others because nanofiber technology has been around for many years. There have been a lot of HEPA filters of many different classes. We cooperate with the manufacturers in Hong Kong. They've been doing this OEM for decades. They've been produced these air filters for Europe and the US. And their nano filter will involve so many layers, and the airflow will be better, and we can save a lot more energy. So this technology has been patented and gained the international accolade. Our nanofiber technology has been developed. It was actually around in 2015, and it would take a pretty long time for ASTM 12100 standard and European CE standard. So we are the first institution, we are the first product that can achieve the N95 standard. We can filter out 99.7% of the particulates. We have the European standard, and the hospital authority is happy to use this against COVID because there is a supply problem for N95. Nano bubble, this is really amazing. I must say that this is not for the purposes of health. We have 100, we can achieve 100 nanometer. This is intended for something else because we can cover the tiny particles that dissolve oxygen can be retained for 30 hours. So for hydro, for the hypon culture, I mean, this is very effective. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Yu. Why don't you have more publicity? Even doctors are not aware of this. They feel that you've got it wrong. If you have developed such amazing products, it's not good for you to bury your head in the R&D. You have to publicize your outcomes. I hope that the permanent secretary will jot this down. You have to give more publicity to the astounding achievements. Mr. Tony J, 3 minutes. The commissioner was saying that the government is helping the industry to carry on with the R&D. I think we need to have joint efforts. Once we have achieved the results, and if the results are commercialized and becoming profitable, the government should share in the profitability. We are trying to help out. Now, I was concerned about the selection process. You are having finite resources over the past 15 years. Each year you have 1.1 billion. Now it is 2.5 billion. I'm not sure how much it's going to be going forward. You are helping the industry in a way. You're helping the company. If they are making huge profit, they will not say thank you to you, because the money will be going into the company budget. If you have achieved marvelous results in your R&D, we should support them. Paragraph 4D of the paper, you have 75 trial projects in the public sector. I put similar question last time. For the public sector, is it because you cannot commercialize them in the private sector and you're just making the public sector trial them out and they have to pay for it? Is it really the case, Chairman? I think you have a point there. If they have marvelous results, they should publicize them more widely. If they have been commercialized and if they are profitable, why can't the government share in the profits? I don't think it's good enough for the government to help individual companies make a fortune. If the products are popular, the companies will be raking in a lot of profits. Like a smartphone, you have hired so many people, and if you help a smartphone to become a success, then the company will be raking in a lot of money. I know that it's not solely for the purposes of profitability, but we cannot afford to just pay out without any returns. Right, Chairman, if I may. In the process of R&D, if the IP status has been established, then there can be an agreement entered into for the licensing fees or royalties to be obtained for the R&D outcomes. So we hope that the R&D centers will do a better job there. Statistically, enclosure 1, table 8 shows all the statistics in 2015 to 2019, the commercialization return compared with the previous 4 years, they have achieved 40% more in terms of commercialization income. Members have put questions 3 or 4 times. I urge members within this building to come down and put questions. I'm urging those who are still in this building to come down, otherwise I draw a line. You don't blame me. Mr. Wuchiwai, 2 minutes, please. Also about the administrative costs. There are 2 sets of figures I'd like to clarify. First, 18, 19, 19, 20. For these 2 years, the staff emoluments have seen a sharp increase, about 30–40%. I mean, that's about the norm for these 2 years in terms of increase in staff emoluments. Maybe you have given them a huge raise, or maybe you have increased the level of manpower. Can you explain this, please? Second, looking at the other table about the manpower resources for the centers, if you divide it by the emoluments, textile and logistics, for these 2 organizations, they are spending $24 million per year for the staff costs. But the manpower resources have been doubled. So my question for the administration is, why is it that this is happening? Each staff is something $50,000. In fact, 20,000 or so would be just enough. While I defer to the CEO in the interest of time. Mr. Wu, for my center, for instance, we have 130 when the report was produced. Now it is 150 we have 200 or so R&D staff to support the 6 universities. That's for the R&D expenditure. You said that there is a difference there. We have 20% of them are PhD holders, 40% of them are master degree holders, and the rest of them are university graduates. Indeed, for the past few years, the pay has been rising pretty steeply. In particular, when we deal with the IoT, the AI, the pay has been creeping up pretty high, pretty steeply. And we also have a high level of manpower because we have built up a good foundation, and we are getting on with more projects. Mr. Wu, please. The other center is the textile one. They have 70 or so people on staff. The LSCM, I accept that. I accept the manpower level as well. Now, the Hong Kong RETA. Chairman, over the years, we have been changing the nature of our projects. Earlier, we had a lot of university resources that could be used, but as our projects are edging towards industrialization, we need more and more manpower, and we have been building up the internal manpower level. We have graduates, masters, and PhDs. The ratio has been increasing, so the expenditure there has also been increasing. Mr. Wu, for LSCM, it is on average $30,000, but your organization is $50,000 on average. Dr. Pierre Chen, I didn't want to ask any more questions. If I may ask the CEO, or you get a secretary to listen back to my questions, just a couple of minutes. My questions are very specific. Will you listen back and answer my questions? My first question, your face mask. You said that the face mask is COVID resistant, and you said the HEPA can be COVID resistant, and the chairman acknowledged this. I think you were answering in a different way. My request is please listen back to my question and answer. Give me a proper answer. Second, I think that you should give me the evidence in black and white. How did you test the face mask so that it can be COVID resistant? I don't think you should be answering in a way that is not germane to the question. I asked you about the bacteria, the virus, and also the COVID resistant. I'm helping you. Why don't you do your homework and give me the proper answer? And a supplement, if I may, Chairman. Thank you. Thanks very much. We will provide a reply in writing, of course. There might have been some misunderstanding. I talked about HEPA, which can filter out less than 100 nanometers. We should be able to filter out COVID-19, so EMSD would like to, the government would like to try it. Right. I was asking NASK, you were answering NASK. Why don't you listen back to the tape? Our mask is N95 certified. Chairman, we will make available a reply in writing. Right, listen back to the tape and make a reply, please. Mr. Tony J, 2 minutes. Chairman, I'm grateful to the Commissioner for clarifying the R&D results. And they've actually discussed with the partners to see whether the centers can also share in the profits. And you said that the income has increased by 40%. We'd like to hear more about this. I hope that you will elaborate on this for the benefit of the public. Second, paragraph 4 of the paper, the target level of industry income of 30%. My question was, how did you arrive at the 30%? In the near future, are you going to adjust the percentage upwards? Yes, please. Chairman, thank you. Thanks very much for the question. In enclosure 1, table 8, we have the statistics there from 15 to 19 for the 4-year period. For the 4 centers, the commercialization income is actually $88.1 billion compared with the previous 4 years. The 4 centers added together, the number stood at $22 billion. So as I said, this is a 4-fold increase in terms of commercialization income. The industry income, again, in enclosure 1, it is pitched at 30% target level. And table 2, enclosure 1, 1819, they're more than 30%. ASPA 49, RITA 34, LSCM 46, and NAMI 55%. So they have achieved a level which is higher than 30%. As to whether we should adjust it upwards to make it higher, we will consider that. Dr. Fernando Zhang, 2 minutes, please. Chairman, if I may follow up. I heard from the CEO his reply regarding the elderly people. Some centers are using the technology. My question is very clear. How many elderly people are benefiting from this technology? And also this tagged vest that prevent elderly people from wandering off. Paragraph 26 in enclosure 1 has the details. 11 centers of Tonga Group are using these tracker technologies. How many elderly people are using this smart wear? And can you give us the figures? In the supplementary paper, you mentioned the 4 R&D centers and operating costs compared with 15 to 19 and 21 to 25. If you compare these 2 4-year period, they will increase, that the operating costs will increase by 91%, a staggering level. In the same paper, the projects that have been approved, you're talking about an increase of 36%. For the new projects, the cost will go up by 44%. So I cannot see why the operating costs can shoot up so dramatically by 90%. These are not new centers. They've been around for so long. Why is it that over the next 4 years, the operating costs will be increased so dramatically? I heard something about the new computer system and so on. Is it really the reason? If this is the case, then will you give us the breakdown regarding the operating costs? Why is it that there is such a dramatic increase?
I think I can give you the answers in writing. Xu Ka-chun, 5 minutes. The paper says that Innovation and Technology Fund, the 4 R&D centers under it, is applying for additional funding to foster innovation and commercialization of their research output. Members have said that Hong Kong RITA, which actually produced the CEO mass, and comments have been made by colleagues on the entire process. I'm not going to repeat what was said, but we know that the masks are not popular. I'm concerned that in fostering I&T and nurturing talents, whether enough has been done. In the past, Hong Kong Rita has been dealing with gerontology technology. In 2018, Hong Kong Rita and Polytechnic University collaborated in researching the new technology that can create fabric that can be used for outdoor clothing and healthcare products and so forth. Now with an aging population, gerontology technology is getting popular. But do we have enough talents to enhance the R&D work? In the past, Hong Kong Rita, its CEO, said that Hong Kong lacks scientific talents. And how is the Bureau going to ensure that we have enough talents to promote innovation and technology? And avoiding the scenario that, like what happened with the CU mask, a product that is so unpopular. And can we really foster commercialization of results of R&D? Who would answer? Thank you. Just then I mentioned repeatedly that CU masks were produced at a very special situation. And normally the R&D centers, their research breakthrough requires close collaboration with the sector to ensure that the research outcome can be commercialized and converted into products, of course, that meet public needs. What member mentioned about the work of Rita, I can ask the CEO to supplement. Ms. Chen? Yes, on commercialization, as the vest mentioned, it's not just for use in the elderly centers. We are promoting technology in private companies so that private companies can also do the manufacturing, because after the research is done, the technology is transferred to small companies, SMEs, so they can benefit as well. And besides that, we've also other clothing tailor-made for elderly people staying in residential care homes who may not who may require special garment that cannot be torn apart easily, and also that is easily changed for them by the workers at the centers. So we've transferred the technology to companies, and some elderly centers or organizations serving the elderly people can use the technology. And through various channels, we have promoted the product, special garment, and the sector has benefited. Okay, follow-up question. You said that you want the sector to benefit. Can you be more specific in providing supplementary information, like which organizations are using the service or the particular product, so that I can liaise with them and find out more from them, the feedback of the users? Yes, I can give you supplementary information because I can't really recall the names. Besides Jockey Club or the Tonghua Group of Hospitals, Elderly Centers, I can give you more information in writing. Chung Kok Pen, well, this is your fourth round, so you only have 1 minute. I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, sixth round, 2 minutes. I don't, because you can say it all in 1 minute. Yeah, just then you said that there are lots of R&D research output that are not known by people, and it's like throwing money into the sea. But for some R&D also involves just throwing money into the sea. The same. Because it's a big report today in the newspaper about the CU mask. The report says that the masks are not as useful, effective as claimed by the government. And now with such high-profile reports in the media, the public will believe reports more than what the government says. So now the government officials are not wearing it. Now you've got millions of masks left behind. Are you throwing money into the sea in a way? If that's the case, then this is really a failed project. Now millions of masks are left behind. How are we going to deal with them? Nobody wants it. Or can you offer a clarification so people would see it otherwise? Yeah, for the accusations, you must, I think, clarify publicly. Yes, as I just done. Our Q mask actually sought international accreditation to reach the standard of ASTM F100. And yet Hong Kong has no organization to give the certification. And the media report today, well, I can't comment on it because we don't know whether the lab concerned mentioned in the report actually comply with ASTM F100 standard. Because I don't think there's such a laboratory that meet the standard in Hong Kong, so we can't comment on the report. And as for our Q mask, it is distributed at post office and the estate offices of Housing Society and Housing Authority, and people can go there to collect the masks. Once we finish the distribution, the remaining masks will actually will decide what to do with the remaining masks, and members are welcome to give us your opinion. Please turn on the mic of Chung Kok Pan. Given the report, people would believe it more than what the government says. Can the government show to the public your laboratory reports? I think we have put it online on our website already. Right from the start, we put it on the website. Okay, Charles Mock, 3 minutes. Just then I heard from members saying that there could be R&D centers like that are taking business away from the sector. R&D sectors, however, say that you are helping many enterprises, providing help to your members. But what you can do actually should not be what the technology companies outside can do. That should be the case. I can't say that I have received many complaints that you've taken the business away, but from another perspective, I think that now the government with the super tax deduction, from what I heard from the sector, many R&D work now has gone back to universities and the R&D centers. Not just your fault, but universities have their own research too, centers too. As I said in the last meeting, in the 18-19 taxation year, the tax deduction claimed totaled $1.8 billion. I don't know how much of it comes from your 4 centers, but still, there are private companies that did not apply for qualified R&D, did not approach qualified R&D organizations and turn to you instead. So the Innovation and Technology Bureau needs to think about the policy issue. Nothing to do with the R&D centers, because you are getting business on your own. But the government has to consider that if it's too biased towards the R&D centers, then is it good or bad for the overall R&D in Hong Kong? There may be organizations which can actually claim the direct tax deduction and benefit more. Of course, you have the scale, and that may be beneficial in a way. So you need to actually come up with a policy direction. Otherwise, now some people are thinking, well, our R&D is biased towards your centers. Little room for private R&D centers because they can't possibly come here for funding of, $2 billion or more. So this is something that the government has to think about. And secondly, as I asked earlier, whether we can separate the item. Many members have talked about the issue with the Q mask. Even if you were to show to the public the laboratory report, you may need to redo it because people are questioning your QC. So the latest report may differ from what you had done before. So as the Secretary said earlier on, you want to have the 4 centers grouped together, but that would make it difficult. Any response? On the research expenditure, in year 18-19, the tax deduction expenditure is 1 $1.8 billion. But back then, when the taxation ordinance was passed, it was in October 2018. So for the taxation year, it may not really create obvious results. We very much encourage private companies to engage in more R&D, and they can join to be a local R&D organizations. So far, 35 organizations have joined. Of course, most of them are from universities and R&D centers, but they can become locally designated R&D centers to benefit from the tax deduction. We do hope that more organizations can join their ranks. And there are also arrangements for expenditure in the area of R&D, and the Hong Kong PhD program, and also we have policies to actually benefit R&D centers in need of talents. For year 18 and 19, well, how about the figure in the following years? Is it that most centers come from the universities, most centers involved? In fact, I think there are only 3 R&D centers in that year that were in the private sector. The rest are based in universities. And you said that there's no problem with that, but I'd like you to think about, to consider, maybe you should have a big consultation with the sector to see how to strike, or what is the better balance. Well, 5 actually were private R&D centers. Well, okay, 2 more. Would that be a public consultation? You should look into it, maybe. Okay, next one, Elizabeth Quat. 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. We do anticipate that Hong Kong government's funded R&D centers can be doing what the private market does not want to be involved in, and yet has strategic meaning to Hong Kong. And just think is that you are not taking business away from the private sector. So take a look at your projects. You have a GIS project, however, that use SAR satellite imaging to monitor continuous changes in lands in Hong Kong. But GIS technology is nothing new. And your monitoring of landslides or landscape changes has been used by many government departments. And many governments are willing to actually do the very relevant research. So I don't know what kind of new research the R&D center is doing. And e-forms, another project is on e-forms. Why does it have to be done by yours? Nobody's doing it, nobody else is doing it or is interested. E-checks is another project, but there are companies dedicated to developing e-checks. So why are you competing with them? Or e-commerce or cloud computing system? Nobody else in the private sector doing research in that area? I don't think so. So all these projects being done by the centers make you feel that, are you doing research for the sake of doing it? I think you should do R&D, which is even more useful for Hong Kong and which is not done, or which private companies are not interested in doing. So that's why you gave me the impression that you can taking business away from the market. Well, Ms. Quat, your input was noted, but let me clarify. INSA, we are supporting the Chinese university for 20 years, using satellite to do geographical tests. Is something that no companies in Hong Kong are engaged in. Foreign companies are engaged in it, but I do want to encourage local R&D. For e-forms, we use the technology of blockchain to overcome big issues in the construction industry, which is a new attempt. For e-checks, we were the first back in 5 years ago in doing research on it. So what you see now should be based on 5 years ago in our collaboration with the Hong Kong MA. Cloud computing, our characteristic is that it's not so much on the technology itself, but we are collaborating with the airport in Zhuhai, because we're both public authorities. We have created a platform to facilitate logistics in the Greater Bay Area. So it's not for the purpose of doing a business either. Okay, turn on her mic, please. I was giving you examples. Well, despite what you said, I still don't think that this is what the government should invest in. You should encourage instead the sector to do it themselves, and that's why you should review it. It's not a problem with one center, but the overall positioning that the government should review. Jeremy Tam, 4 minutes. My question is on the APAS. I can see that there are attractive projects like autonomous trackers in at the airport, and also your high function electric motors or vehicles. As stated in the paper, if the effectiveness of the motor, or if its size is reduced by half and can be 10% more effective, then it's really a fantastic patent. I don't know what you're comparing it with in terms of the 10%. If you're comparing it with Tesla, if you're 10% more, then of course they would actually like to buy your technology to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm not questioning the effectiveness of your work, but I'd like to know, I'm sure you have registered your patents. I'd like to point out that where can you tell us? How can you tell us where, or if you ever receive income from your research outcome or product that is adopted by the market? Do the private company need to buy the patent from you? It's a very thick paper and there's so much information there. I couldn't find the paper where it's mentioned how you're going to have income, derive income from your research output. Actually, in page 8, table 8, commercialization income shows you the income. You mean page 8? There's no table there. No, sorry, it's page 8 in enclosure 1. In our R&D, there are various sources of income, including the motor control system. We can get income from licensing. So these are actually pioneering projects, and we have no collaboration partners. We just did the R&D in response to market needs and provided basis of technology, which if the private companies are interested, we can commercialize them and license them. Based on our experience, often for every 2 months, we would stage a showcase of our own products of which we own the IP, and promote the markets to the market. And often, the showcase will lead to joint projects with the center, because from our surveys we find that 60% of the participants in our event found that they needed our help in technology.
I'm sorry, in the interest of time, let me concentrate on table 8. You mentioned that 2018 to 19, your center, the commercialization income, it's only about 1.87 million. This is really a very small sum. But of course, I know that research output will be kind of long. You can only get a return in the long run. But I'd like to know, do you have a time frame of when you can achieve considerable income from your research output? Well, in addition to licensing income, we also generate income from the projects or the subsidy from our collaborating partners. Well, these takes up the major part of our income. For instance, if the collaborators put in more than 50% of the cost of the project, then they can own the IP of the research output of that project. Then we will not have a licensing income from that project. On the other hand, we can get income from the sponsor or subsidy of our collaborating partners on those projects. Please continue. All right. What I want to know is that, well, if you're referring to table 8, well, then the commercialization income is only very, very limited. So every year, how much do you spend every year? Well, simply put, for instance, for last year, what was your expenditure, and also what was your general income or the overall income for the whole of last year? Can you perhaps just give us these two figures? Well, last year, our project cost is for 47 million, and the income from the industry is 14 million. From income from industry is 12 million, and contract service is 800,000. So from last year alone, the income we generated from the industry is more than $14 million. But then you have spent over 40 million. That is only for last year. So simply put, you are making losses. Can you project when you can break even or start to generate income, say in 5 years or more? Chairman, for the research centers, it's actually an investment on R&D. So it is not aimed at making profit. Well, it's a kind of investment. Of course, you want to have returns. Well, we encourage them to have more commercialization income. For APAS in 2019 to 2020, the income from the industry is $13 million. That includes sponsors from the industry on their R&D projects. Well, that exactly is my problem. You receive over $13 million income, but then your expenditure is much more than that. For the past 13 years, you have been able to make only $7 million in total. That is a profit at 7 million. So last year, your expenditure was 14 million. Of course, I understand that you have to invest in R&D, and it is not a short-term investment. I totally understand that. But then on table 8, you can see that throughout 13 years, in the past 13 years, you still have not been able to break even. So that is a problem. And also when the centers were first established, did you have a plan that they would be able to break even in 10 years or 20 years? I'm sure that you must have a plan, because if you make investment, be they long-term or short-term investment, I'm sure that you have a plan of the time frame for them to break even or even generating income. I think I'd like to explain more clearly. We try to help the industry through these R&D centers. That's why these are investments, and it's not our goal or our plan to achieve a break-even scenario. This is not our only goal. And actually, we want our centers to be able to help the industry and also collaborate with the industry. And so the contribution, and also we are happy to see that the contribution from the industry has been increasing year by year. And also for APAS, we can see that the industry participation has increased for more than 49%. So this is the direction that we will go by. And of course, we are not trying to have the research centers being able to break even. This is not our goal. Mr. Tam? Yes, I agree that this is an investment. You mentioned that this is investment. Of course, if it's investment, you have to consider yields. Well, for APAS, have you quantified the income or the benefits that this center has brought to the society? Or are your collaborators from the mainland or from overseas? Will they be reaping benefits from your research output? In other words, the Hong Kong society is not able to benefit from your research effort or research output. Well, if you can show us that at least there may be some indirect income generated from your research output, that means what you have done is benefiting Hong Kong, and also your income is actually much higher than this $14 million. Do you have this kind of figure or this kind of information? Because if you don't, then we don't know whether the society is benefiting from your research work. Well, there are some projects through which we help the SME. We help them to enhance themselves or upgrade themselves, and then they make use of our technologies to enhance themselves, and then they are able to make profits. We have been able to get some royalty incomes from these collaboration. Let me cite some examples. Chairman, in the interest of time, I don't want examples. I just want figures. Any indirect benefit to the society. We don't have this kind of figure on hand. Well, the government always emphasizes that there are not just direct benefits, there are also indirect benefits. How come you don't have this kind of information? Then you can convince me that we should give you further funding. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Tam. The research output have been able to help industry enhance themselves, and there are economic benefits generated from the enhancement of the industry. We will be able to get this information after the meeting. We will make this information available to members. Last round. Well, this is the 5th round. It should be 1 minute only, but then I give you 6 minutes. Because I know that would not be enough time for you. Let me draw a line here. Any other members would like to raise questions, please press the button. Otherwise, we're going to handle the 37A. There are 2 already submitted. All right, we'll draw a line here. Mr. Wu Jiwei. I'd like to follow up on my question on manpower. In 2018 and 19, the explanation on manpower, I understand for LSCM, it's okay. But then for Hong Kong RITA, there are staffing expenditure. There are 75 staff, and in 2019 to 2020, the staffing costs have increased to 48 million. Of course, for LSCM, there are also increment, but then it's only increased to 29 million. I accept that. This is acceptable. But then for Hong Kong RITA, staffing costs on average is about 30,000 to 40,000 per staff. But then the number has increased to $48 million in 2019-2020. What I want to know is that there is such a sharp increment. What is the reason behind? Have there been any changes in the staffing structure that Hong Kong RITA needed to have such a staggering increment in its staff costs in the past year? Who would like to take this question? (2017 to 18 is 21 million, and then the next following year is 23 million, and then the staff it's 75 staff count. So on average, it's about 20,000 to 30,000 per staff. And then we had an increment. As I mentioned just now, we had more projects, and then many of them need to be industrialized or involved industrialization. That's why we needed to add more engineers and professional staff to carry out industrialization projects. Any specifics? Because the increment is almost 100%. CEO? Well, of course, we have to cater for future developments, and we need to add more professional people, such as engineers. I'm sorry, I can't accept that. If the staffing cost has increased 100%, then it's natural that people will question, will have queries. Well, CEO, can you be more specific? Industrialization, okay, but then will there be new production lines in Hong Kong that will make use of your research output? That's why you need to have so many more staff. Please speak into the microphone. The research center have plans for 21 to 22 and up to 24 to 25. It's set out in enclosure. Hong Kong Retail is a relatively small research center. They have only about 70-odd staff, but then they will be having more and more research projects, and they will have more collaboration with the industry. That is why they need, and they are taking a more proactive approach. So they want to expand their staff body, and that is why the operating expenditure and also staff costs have increased. We will provide further information after the meeting. Dr. Fernando Jiang, 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'd like to ask about operating cost increment of 90% in the past for the future, for the coming 4 years. I'd like to see the breakdown. Why is it that they need such a big increment? I think they will provide us the information in writing after the meeting. And also, just now I asked about Para 26, how many elderly people will be benefited from that technology. And also, because our society is aging, we have more and more elderly people in society. There are also more chronic patients in society. I hope that the research centers can use this as their research focus. That is the needs of the elderly people and the chronic patients. I noticed that in the past, in the tendering documents, they once mentioned about these themes. However, in the recent years, it seems that it's no longer emphasized. I remember in 2020 to 21, there was some mention about this theme, that is to cater for the needs of the elderly people and also people with chronic diseases. I hope that in the coming years, the research centers could also take this as one of their research foci, because this is important to our society. As we have an aging society, this would benefit directly the people of Hong Kong. And I really hope that government will also publicize the research outputs, and I really hope that the research output could benefit our people. Right. The technologies to cater for the needs of the elderly, yes, indeed, we will include this into our research goals. Dr. Zhang, when will you complete your review on the research centers? Well, Chairman, on the technologies for elderlies, there are projects on this nature. There are research centers that are doing these projects. We understand that there is such a need in the market, and this is actually indeed one of our focuses. Mr. Tam, 2 minutes. Chairman, as you can see from the paper that the projects, most of the projects need over $100 million. But then for APAS, it's relatively lower than the other centers. The income is relatively lower. I just heard that they are not trying to commercialize their output. There are also income from royalties, etc. I hope that APAS could provide me with more information. Just now the administration said that they would provide us information about the indirect benefits brought by the research output of these centers. I'm quite surprised to hear that response, because if you are to do this study, it would not be easy for you to compile such a document, because it may need some time for you to collect information. Well, however, the administration has promised to provide the information, so I really look forward to your paper. That is the supplementary information. I'd like to know when you can provide us with this report. that is, on the secondary income generated from the research centers or the indirect benefit that these research outputs will bring to our society. Well, Chairman, for APAS in enclosure 1, table 1, you can see that they have only 28 staff members. So it's smaller in organization when compared with other centers, other research centers. So this is a point that I hope members could take note of. Another point is that members pointed out that the research centers have done a lot of good work. However, the publicity have not been adequate. So we will definitely come back and reconsider. Chairman, not reconsider. You will provide us with information, right? Okay, we will consider how to step up with our publicity for the research centers. Mr. Wu Chi-wei, you have a follow-up question? Yes, Chairman, I'll be brief. I hope the administration could check this set of numbers. For the LSCM, they have 124 staff members, and their expenditure is $23.9 million. That means on average, each staff will be about 190,000 per staff. And then for Hong Kong RITA, they have also need 27.9 million, and they have 75 staff members. I wonder why there is such a big difference between the two centers. That is, the average salary of the employee of these two centers are so different, and also they are going to increase to 48 million. And other research centers do not have such a staggering increment in their staff costs. I hope that you will go back and check these numbers. All right, let's handle 37A. We will extend the meeting for 15 minutes to handle these two 37A. 5 minutes. Please ring the bell for 5 minutes.
There
are two 37As, please.
主席使乜讀一次啊？好啊，請讀啊。我讀一次啊。鑑於香港人口老化，本委員會喺考慮撥款與創新及
In view of the fact that Hong Kong is an aging society, we hope that the research centers would take the needs of the elderly and the chronic patients as one of their focuses. Government should also try to promote the research outputs and make sure that the people of Hong Kong will be able to enjoy these research outputs regardless of their financial situation.
Are we going to have any discussion on 37A?
係，你好，張志雄議員。
Dr. Zhang, Chairman. It's not a question of discussion, it's a question of whether we deal with the 37A. Members, there is another 37A motion. We will put this to the vote. And in fact, there are two more items to do with infrastructure or engineering project. Will you please stay behind to vote on the two items, the other two items that can be voted on immediately? Just a reminder that there are two 37A motions. This is the first one. We are voting on whether we are going to deal with this 37A motion. Please proceed to vote. Voting now ends. I display the results: 15 for, 206 against. So we negative this motion. The next one, please ring the bell for 5 minutes. This is by Mr. Sugajun. In accordance with 37A of the FCP, I'd like to move this motion. The QMAS developed by the government was coordinated by the Hong Kong RETA. The government has never announced the information on the manufacturer. It was later that we became aware that it was coordinated by the Hong Kong RETA, and that led to accusations of favoritism. Therefore, when new technology is developed, the government should announce the details to the Let's Go for discussion.
提一提大家啊，即
Just a reminder that we are going to vote on whether we should proceed with this motion without notice.
現在
Please proceed to vote. Voting ends. I display the results 16 for, 26 against. The motion has been negatived. We will not proceed with the motion. Let's put FCR 2020 to 2021 to the vote. For those in favor, please ring the bell for 5 minutes. Just a reminder that there are 2 items which do not need separate voting. Please stay behind for those 2 items as well.
我哋即將表決就係
We're going to vote on the funding for 4 R&D centers. Please proceed to vote. Voting now ends. I display the results. 25 for, 15 against, 1 abstention. The paper has been endorsed. FCR 2020-21-17. This is to endorse the PwC's paper to regarding the revitalization of Chui Ping River and the improvement of Lam Wah Street Playground and adjacent area. This will cost us $1,342.2 billion and $145.5 billion respectively. For those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, members who voted were in favor. The next one, without the need for separate voting, paper FCR 2020-21-18. This is to upgrade part of 702CL entitled Kai Tak Development remaining infrastructure works for developments at the former runway and South Apron Phase 1 at a cost of $135.2 million and the retention of the remainder in Cat B. Those in favor, those against. I think that those members who voted were in favor. Thank you all very much.